This is Pink Talks, the place where we discuss intersectionality and human rights.
Well, let's introduce the book first. I don't have the English version, I have the Greek version here because this was the first version I read. So I'm emotionally attached with this book, even though this is the newest version. It was published in 2019. So Virginia Woolf wrote these essays. Basically, she didn't write at first as a book, a room on one's own, and she wanted to make women aware about the issues that previous generation of women have faced in the terms of writing and also in the creative field. And she wanted to inspire the generation of the students she had at that point. She wrote the book around 1928, 29, to inspire them and to give them ideas of how they can approach a writing career or any creative career actually, despite the huge issues they were facing at the time. She gave examples about previous authors, men and women. She tried to find solutions for them. She gave them some very interesting points to think and how they can navigate their way through the difficulties they faced at the time. It's considered a feminist book, but I don't want to elaborate on that. I want to hear your own opinions. So, would you like to start telling us when you first encountered with this book, and how did you decide to read this book? Why? And what was your first thought? So basically, the first question is just, how did you discover this book? How and why did you decide to read this book? Let's start with Mariana.
Okay, so I know Virginia for she's an amazing writer. I have read the book To the Lighthouse, and this book I have heard about it, and some of my friends have read about it, but I never really read. That was the first time that I read was this month when I heard about the podcast that a friend invited me. I was very interested in the essay, and that's how I found out about it. I actually read. But I think she's an amazing writer, and I think that's how I encountered the.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Sophia? You said that you read it 10 years, no, long time ago.
Yeah, maybe even 10 years. 10 years ago, I had read the collection in English first, and I had used it at my PhD. And the collection of Woolf, and then I used it in a collection of my own. I think it was about young people, and so it made sense to use her advice, or not really her advice, but her view of what a woman writer would need. I think what strikes me in that still, and what made me read it, was the title as theme, this notion of a private room, this notion of something basic that we actually need, because I think I always kind of felt this need myself, and the lack of it growing up in a family of many. Yeah, I think once you start reading a Woolf essay or a Woolf novel or whatever she's written, you just you are captured, and then you go on. And then I can think, of a list, as you sent us this list of questions. I can think of a list of things that captured me and wouldn't let me go without finishing it. But that's for later on.
Very good. Thank you. Natasha, what do you think?
Yeah,
so your first encounter with the book.
Yes, so I actually studied English literature and linguistics at the Aristotle University. And I remember reading this book when I was 19, 20. It's quite a basic book for our department, I guess. And now, thinking about it, I realize how lucky I was in a way to encounter this book at that stage, that you're still exploring the world around you. And basically, it made me understand why I was feeling so angry, what was wrong with me and the world around me. Books, in a way, give you vocabulary to understand your experiences, well, the experiences of the author, and therefore your experiences.
Thank you. What about you, Leah?
So I was asked to join the book club, and so it was suggested then to read the book. And I think at first it was a little difficult. I don't really enjoy like maybe not classics, but older literature. I like more contemporary. So, but yeah, once I started reading, I was very captured by it. And by the end, I just wanted to continue. So I think after this, I probably will read more of her work. Yeah, I was upset that it was only like 100 and some pages and only 6 parts or whatever. But yeah, so it'll be nice to read some more of her work, I think.
That's a good feeling to have for a book when you start reading and say, I'm not very into that, but then you're like, I don't want this to finish. I don't want this to end. You're like so excited of give me more feeling. So she did something well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Katarina, what about you?
Well, I encountered the book when I was building my feminist library because I thought that I've read few women's along the years. And my experience was I fell in love with her at the end of the first page because she has a way with words. It has a poetry. It's like a flow in her writing that mingles poetry with facts. And I saw like Natasha and Sophia, I felt seen by another woman through the text with all the difficulties that we women faced in our daily lives to create something. So yeah, it was like love at the first page.
So do you think, this is a question for all of you, do you think that the book is quite innovative, even in nowadays? What do you think?
So if you want to go, Sophia? Yeah, for me,
No,
yes.
no, you go, please, please.
Yeah.
You
For
first.
me, in spite that she wrote it in 1929, I felt it was contemporary because yes, we had like technological advances, and women in universities are like, at least in Portugal, are the majority of the students. But the fact is that we still have to, like, we almost have like two jobs, our job and our job at home. So our job and the job of being the caretakers for others. So we still, for me, we still face the issue that we don't have space and time to create, and not also that, but in another point that it was like a breakthrough for me. It's the theme of self confidence, the difference between self confidence in men and women. So with I talk about this with my friends, my artist friends, my academic friends. So we still doubt our capacity to create and the quality of our work in a way that men just don't do. So
yeah, for me, it's like that.
Mm-hmm. Sophia, you want to say something before?
Yes, I think one of the things that I remember very vividly, and as I said, I realized today that this was going on, so I didn't refresh my memory, but one of the things that I remember very vividly is the comparison with Shakespeare, I hope, and how if Shakespeare was a woman, how differently that would have played out. And when Katarina was talking about how we are the majority of students in universities, in Greek universities, we are still the majority of students. We are not the majority of teachers. And I don't know in which country, I hope the Scandinavian countries are a good example, but I haven't researched this, but we're not in Greece, the
That was
majority
a
of
good one.
teachers.
That was a good one.
So,
That was a good one. I totally agree with you.
yeah. And the other thing that really makes me shiver even now that I remember from the text is how she says about how she talks, and I hope again this is the text, it's definitely the book, the collection, but I think it's the text as well, the essay, which talks about how finding our own voice without fighting against the patriarchal voice. You stop fighting against it and you start listening to yourself, which again was a great revelation to me. It just felt like I had so many reasons, and I still have so many reasons to protest. And how this protest does not necessarily is not necessarily my voice. My voice is what comes after this protest. My voice is, I mean, I'm not just the protest, just this protest, let's say. I am as a woman, as a voice of a woman, I am more than just this protest. And that was another revelation that I remember very vividly. And yeah, maybe we'll have time to talk about this, I hope.
I think you mentioned about having this voice. It doesn't define you, right? That's what you're trying to say. That being a woman who fights for her rights, it's not the only thing that defines you.
Not just it's different. Fighting for my rights and protesting against what's happening. Protesting against what's happening is something that we need to do, but we cannot consume ourselves into this because then and beyond that, maybe before and after, we need to create something new and not play the same game.
And
not be in that, sorry, not just to finish this, not just be in that discourse of fighting, because there's a lot of experience that comes that has to do with more things than that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, because we as women, we are more than that fight. We are we have like our experiences, our individual experiences as women, as human beings, as friends, mothers, lovers, and that's not only the fight that we have. So can you talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, I think it has to do with I'm not prepared, unfortunately. I'm not prepared enough, because I found out today. It has to do with all the things that we have to offer, and we don't just have to offer the opposite. We don't just have to offer I think it's a good way to put it, not just the protest against what is happening, but a vision of what can be happening. So
I think that's what Virginia Woolf actually did, right? She took a problem and she researched past women authors and writers and creatives and tried to find a solution for this
yes,
trap.
and at the same time, she was. I mean, I remember reading about it when I was little, and I'm not little anymore, and it didn't make sense then, and now it does. Reading about how she was not part of the system. She was not in a university. She was not. She was, and so she was not ruled. She was not pinned down by university rules. And how I feel that at the moment is like, for instance, in order to be in a university, you need to have to publish in journals, and journals demand a very specific way of you. And she was not that, and she did not have to do that because she had those £500 a year, as she says, from an aunt, if I remember correctly, which made it possible for her not to have to be pinned down to survive. And so, survival aside, she could be out of the framework. She could be like there are those psychology games that they give you 9 squares, and each square, not 9, is it 9? Yeah, maybe 9 or 6, and each square represents something from your psyche. What she could do was she could start drawing and start writing outside the 9 squares. There were no squares. She could be outside the margins, outside the frame. And I think I feel it with each of her writing, each of her piece of writing, that she doesn't have to adhere to some devastating rules. She doesn't have to be in the box, to put it very, very simply. She doesn't have to draw within the frame.
So she did her own protest, basically. She found another way
and it was
to go against the system without playing with the rules, but also trying to create some rules and trying to create also some probably solutions for her colleagues, for the next generation of female writers, in order to be able to actually write or be creative.
Yeah.
So
in a way, it's like seeing yourself beyond being a daughter and a wife and a lover and I am those things, and then maybe I'm not just those things. It's that's the beyond the frame thing. It's like, she was also Virginia Woolf. She was not just the daughter and the wife and the she was not just those roles as a social being, and social in the very restrictive way of good society, for instance.
But that's a very interesting thing, that she had to fight in order and to be so talented in order to get the right of being a human being by herself without being identified by other roles. When for men, they don't have to be talented in order to be, identify as just themselves. They are not a woman's husband. They are not a woman's son. So it was Virginia Woolf, because she was she was such a talented person, especially for her era. She was fast forward, and she actually gained this right, which shouldn't be gained. It should be taken for granted.
And it's not as though, yeah, and it's not as though she's not. It's not that she's not protesting, but she does describe what is happening. She does describe how women up to a point could not have property. But this is not done in an angry manner, let's say. I mean, she is angry, but she is describing. Anger does not consume her. What happened, the protest does not consume her. There's a vision behind everything. that she writes. It's not just what have you done to me? It's let me walk in front and show you how it can be. I don't know. Yeah.
Mariana and Dia, what do you think? As I think you are the youngest persons here. So, what do you think? Did you see anger? Did you see the need for fight, for argument on this book?
Can I go? I do think that no, I don't see anger. I see like in a way that it's kind of provocative, the way that she speaks, the way she writes, but in a provocative way that is not disrespectful or like Sophia said, like look what you did to me. No, it's more like let's think about solutions, and I think it's very interesting the way that she thinks about 100 years ahead of her time. She's always saying like maybe 100 years this is going to be able to happen. She talks about she imagined this writer, and she talks about how for that time maybe not, but maybe in 100 years. So I like the way that she thinks about the future, not only about the moment. It's very interesting to see the relation about the past, about what is happening now, and her hopes for the future. So yeah.
Leah, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think she's angry. I think she mentioned too before, like, that people write with anger behind them, and then she is angry because of that. But in her writing, I don't feel anger. And then she also asked the question, like mentioned before, about what if we could let these things go and write without that? How would we write authentically? And I was thinking about that as like space, like figuratively and not literally, like not a literal room, but maybe this area that we could breathe and be, kind of free from judgments or comparisons to men or any of those things that writers and creatives have to face. Yeah, I wrote in my notes something about like being under a microscope constantly, like either you're too feminine in writing or too masculine or too much of this, or, and what would happen if people don't have to be like that, if it could just be really free. So I took the space more like in that sense, not so much as a room, but I mean, you need a room also.
No, that's a very interesting perspective because, yes, it's not only a physical room, but also a mental a room that we need to create. And actually, we have to create as women. It's an extra pressure on us to be able to create this mental safe space, even a safe space among our family and friends. Sometimes you want to write, you want to be creative, you want to do things, and you are constantly facing criticism, or how many years are you going to study, how many years are you going to look for your career, and are you going to get married. The clock is ticking against you and against your ovaries, like so many things that we have to get rid of, which is not always easy because the entire society forces us to be in that path, even if we don't want to, even if we try to be against it. Actually, it's quite difficult to get rid of it completely, and this of course affects the creative process. Natasha, what do you think about all this? Do you have something to add or to amend or to?
I think, well, many great points were made. I think it's worth maybe highlighting that when you face such difficulties, it affects you and it shapes you. So it's very hard to think of who you are without that struggle. It becomes part of you in a way. And maybe you can embrace it and make something out of it. And this is exactly what she did. But I think that she did something very clever. I think that instead of being angry, she chose to be humorous instead. And I think that's very smart, because you attract more how's the saying, you attract more flies with honey than vinegar. I think that was a great thing to do.
Yeah, but one thing that I liked was this. I think that Sophia already talked about a little bit. This creative that is beyond gender, a woman, a manly woman. So and she does that with Orlando, with her book Orlando. And actually, there's a movie with Tilda Swinton. It's really
Yes.
nice because she's really androgynous and she can morph into men and women. So it's really nice. And I think I read that she uh, embraced that part also because of her relationship with Vita. I don't know if this is actually something that happened, but Orlando was a byproduct of that relationship. But it's really interesting because I think Sophie is right, but I think Natasha is always right. It's also right because I think that we are in the middle, actually, of the process. So my question is, can we be that creator beyond gender while still having this struggle to do? So is our times the fight that we have as women to assure our rights and our equality regarding men, not a hindrance, this struggle not a hindrance in being this non general artist or academic or whatever is your pursuit. So it's something that I reflect constantly. Is it our struggle something that does not allow us to reach that peak because we are being constantly attacked in our basic human rights?
I'm sorry to cut in. Well, I would like to follow up with what you were saying. Right now, obviously, things are not as bad as they were back in late 20s and early 30s, and obviously, we still have more weight. We have way to go. We're still suppressed in many ways, but I think genders and gender roles are starting to become more fluid, giving us with more freedom to choose who we are and be authentic. And I think this is the way we're gonna go towards the future. We are suppressed by gender roles and expectations, but just like she did with Orlando, just like we're as a society are doing right now, we're exploring other options. We're becoming more fluid. We have even different language, different pronouns. We're opening up. And I think that can be a next step towards freedom.
If I may comment on that.
Yeah, of course.
I kind of, well, I am older than you, which is in an ageist society something of an admittance. I think I grew up thinking that we are so different from the time of Woolf, and it was later than I realized, and now I even today I had a realization that I didn't like very much, which was feminist, and I can tell you about it. But what is happening right now in Greece is a Me Too movement, yes, which kind of reveals an amazing array of amazing in the most negative way of abuse, sexual and other. as this is happening, and also because of some research work I did, a research project, I think slowly we understand how many times a day as academics we are being interrupted because we are women, how many times a day we are not listened to because we are women as academics or as any other profession. But even as academics, which is supposed to be a tower of equality, or at least of intellectuals. And what does that mean? I'm not saying that I don't agree with what was said before. We are better in some ways, but those movements, as the Me Too in Greece right now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't protest. I'm saying that those movements are needed and they have our backs. Without them to have our backs, we cannot really be as creative as we can be. We cannot really tap into what we have to say, because there are things that need to be said, and they need to be said even as women, even as socially female, let's call them. I think, and I've talked about this, I've written about this. I think socially, the fact that we are allowed, in inverted commas, to have emotions, that is something that we can offer. That is more than what men are allowed. So it's not as though we have to kind of throw into the garbage everything that we are given socially. But and it's not as though also that we have to forget about protesting and about being angry. These things have our backs, and maybe we even have to spend a portion of our days, a portion of our adult lives protesting. But also we have to be able to move beyond that as well, because it can consume us. I think that is my reading of Woolf, not to let it consume us. And I don't think she has let it consume her. That in that way, in her descriptions are heartwarming, and her descriptions of sexism and freeing at the same time. They're not just look at what's happening. They are in a way, they are, let's all look at what's happening. Not just women, not just us who are suffering. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that
just to say that I'm not dismissing the
progress.
The protest.
Sometimes it feels as if we're not progressing enough.
Yeah, it's like 10 steps ahead, 9.5 behind, and so the progress is so slow. I'm sure, however, that during her era, she would have been described as hysterical, as super hungry, as feminazi, or other nice words that we all know. So I think it doesn't go without all of these things. Even if you're not really angry, I mean, you are angry, but you are making something creative out of it, and you're trying to address it on a way that you are addressing the problem, you are finding solution, you are giving solution to other women who are struggling. You are still going to be labeled as hysterical, hungry, she didn't have sex tonight, or
but she was
that.
also she also had men who were her allies, such as her husband, and they had the publishing house together. So
I mean, it doesn't. I mean, even suffragettes had some men.
But allies are not enough when society is against you.
Sorry.
No, you need allies.
Well, of course, but still you have to face everything else. And I'm so sorry to cut in again. You said that she was not consumed, and I totally agree with you that she gifted us with amazing pieces of literature. but in the end, she committed suicide. And I think it's important to mention what Katerina talked about in the beginning. She mentioned the word intersectionality. So I think it's important to say, okay, everybody struggles, but then you have to also think about sexuality. She was, what's the word? Lesbian. Yeah, she was a lesbian. Obviously, she was facing more than just being a woman and not being allowed to go live
She
her
was
life.
bisexual, was she?
I think, where is Google when you need that?
I thought she was lesbian as well, but probably you're right.
Anyways, it doesn't even matter, lesbian or bisexual.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, if she was a part of LGBTQI+, she would have faced some extra obstacles.
Yes.
As if she was a black woman or if she was a refugee or something. So this, come overlap each other.
Yeah, of course.
Can I say something?
Yes,
just to, because I really I pay attention to what you guys said about protests and all that it consume you. I think also depends of your reality, like you said about Greece. I think also depends of that, because depending of where you are in the world, sometimes I totally agree it shouldn't consume you, but it does.
Yes.
Because there is no choice. Like in Brazil right now, Brazil of Bolsonaro, and South America in general, you can see how the feminist movements are so strong there, because they have to let them consume them to make the change. It's like she said a moment that she was talking about how women face not indifference but hostility. So I think that's very interesting to see how much hostility we face and how many struggles we have to go through, and how this becomes part of ourselves as well, and we cannot take this out of us, I just wanted to add this.
And you get accustomed to it. This is even worse. Sophia was saying that she was interrupted so many times a day and she hadn't even realized the extent. Like they have become part of us, unfortunately.
Yeah, you take for granted that you're gonna be mansplained 10 times per hour. That you're gonna be belittled because or your ideas are gonna be taken from a male colleague, and everybody will be, oh wow, but I said it first. All of these kind of things that I think they're familiar from school age to, I don't know, retirement or even beyond. Felix, do you want? No, probably he didn't want to say anything. Okay. I want to ask you, which is your favorite phrase or the favorite sentence of the book? I really wanted to ask this question. And please give me your favorite ones. Leah, do you want to start or you're not ready?
Who?
I wrote down a few, but I think some of the ones we've already maybe discussed a little bit, so I'll bring up a different topic maybe.
That's totally fine.
So she was basically talking about how women are usually in literature explained or have been in the past by relation to men. So she says, where was it? They are now and then mothers and daughters, but almost without exception, they are shown in the relation to men. It was strange to think that all the great women in fiction were, until Jane Austen's day, not only seen as the other sex, but only seen in relation to the other sex. So I thought it came to mind about this. It's not new, but it's I've been seeing a lot of media about the Bechdel test, and used mainly in films, but it's basically a test to show the relation of women in fiction and movies. So it has three criteria. The first would be there are at least two women featured in the movie. Then the two women talk to each other, and the conversation that they have discusses something other than men. And I just find it so interesting that even now we think like, of course women would do that in movies or in literature, but it's still, it doesn't happen. And a lot of like, I see a lot of it talking about like Marvel movies, which are one of my favorites, and they're horrible for this. It baffles me. And some of my favorite movies are just not,
They do not pass
featuring
the
women. Yeah, they don't pass the test. Yeah.
I just want to add, I just Googled it because obviously I knew that, but that term was coined in 1985. 85. And it's still relevant. Okay.
I think that it's curious because of how women are seen in literature. I think that she said something like, it's amazing that men, when writing women, they are like independent, fierce, a topic of being worshipped, and then in the real life, women are abused by men. And then it's something. It was 1928. She has this perception, and this still happens. There are very few well-written women by men in literature, in contemporary literature. You are starting to see some of them in science fiction and fantasy, but it's a small pond for such a big sea of books. So yeah.
And not only in these kind of books, even light books like erotica books and things like that, women are described in such like, first of all, by their body parts. All women in erotica books written by men are with super boobs, very nice curves and skin that it's like porcelain. I mean, things that they don't really exist in reality. And it's not just in one book or two. I mean, men authors describe women in such hilarious, in a negative way, that sometimes I'm like, when I'm reading something, I'm like, do they really know women? Some women in there, do they really pay attention to women around them, or they just have their own perspective about women and that's it? It's like sometimes we are not even real. So women cannot really relate to the female characters when they're written by male writers. They don't talk to us. But look, with such a small book as Virginia's Woolf, how many things we have been related with, and in such a short conversation. And if we think about this for more hours and days, or if we talk again, or we're gonna find way more things that we're like, oh yes, this applies to me. Okay, this I feel it. I have been on her shoes as well. All of these things. This never happens with men written characters, female characters. I don't know if you disagree or agree. Marianne, please.
Sorry, I think it's very interesting. Like, I grew up watching those movies where the girl they are not real at all. And I grew up thinking that that was real because no one told me that's not real. Don't believe in that. And then just when I started understanding more and growing up, like getting like approaching my 16, 17, I was like realizing that that's not real life. Men write about us because they project this idea in their mind of who we are because they expect us to be like that. And we are not even close to be like that. So I think she realized that way before everyone, which she was, very, very observant. Yeah, very smart.
Do you have a phrase as well? A favorite phrase from the book or something that you would like to share?
Yes, I have one that actually it's related to what Leah said about how she imagines the room like more in a figurative way, not like a space that is lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set up the freedom of my mind. I think that defines pretty much the idea of not even only a room, a space. Of course, we need that, how Leah said, but the freedom that we have in our minds, just be able to do what we want to do without those so many struggles and barriers, and the ones that men create to us, because they create those barriers and those struggles that we have to face it most of the times. So
thank you. Natasha, you want to share a phrase or something?
Yeah, I do have it in front of me.
Okay.
So here it goes. It's obvious that values of women differ from the values of the other sex. It is the masculine values that prevail. Speaking crudely, football and sport are important, the worship of fashion, the buying of clothes, trivial. And these values are inevitably transferred from life to fiction. This is an important book, the critic assumes, because it deals with war. This is an insignificant book because it deals with the feelings of women in a drawing room. A scene in a battlefield is more important than a scene in a shop. Everywhere and much more subtly, the difference of values persists.
Why do you think this is your favorite or the most descriptive of the book? Why do you think that? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but maybe you want to elaborate a bit on it.
Come on, how many men have you met that they are obsessed with war? Okay, like the movies. How many movies about World War I and II? Do we need that many? And I think Woolf was at Woolf's time they associated feminists with the peace movement because obviously they were like, "Yep, enough with war. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about fashion. This is important too. Let's talk about conversations in drawing rooms." Mariana was talking about how men write women, but I would like to talk about the opposite: how women write men. I grew up in love with Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Darcy, and I realized some years ago that I fell in love with a man written by a woman. And all the action is like in nice houses and like in nature walking. Can we make these more important? Yes. It was a rhetorical question and I answered that.
Sophie, you want to add something?
Yeah, as I said, I haven't read it recently, and I was just looking through it now as the girls were talking, and I was looking at the passages which were wonderful, the ones you mentioned, and maybe I'll add a sentence from when she describes Mary Carmichael. Mary Carmichael, I thought, that's Virginia Woolf talking, still hovering at a little distance above the page, will have her work cut out for her, merely as an observer. I'm afraid indeed that she will be tempted to become what I think the less interesting branch of the species, the naturalist, novelist, and not the contemplative. There are so many new facts for her to observe. She will not need to limit herself any longer to the respectable houses of the upper middle classes. She will go without kindness or condescension, but the courtesan, the harlot, and the lady with the but in the spirit of fellowship, into those small scented rooms where sit the courtesan, the harlot, and the lady with the pug dog. I think this feeling of being able to move beyond the respectable houses of the upper middle classes, I was thinking of, but I haven't read it all now. Just this freedom of being able to write about anything is part of her vision, I think. Anything to observe and move beyond what is socially acceptable to write about.
Thank you. Katarina, you want to add your own?
Well, my first sentence, Mariana already read it, but I have so many others. I think that I like this really this one, that when she pins down the woman manly. It is fatal to be a man or a woman, pure and simple. No one must be woman manly or manly woman. It is fatal for a woman to lay the least stress on any grievances, to plead even with justice in any cause, in any way to speak consciously as a woman. I think that this represents what we were talking about, this beyond gender writer that she evokes. I think that it summarizes all the things that she puts in this room, that she tells that a woman should have. So, but it's really difficult for me to pick like a sentence, because she's just so poetic in the way that she writes. So yeah. And what about you, Valentina? What's your favorite sentence?
Mariana also told mine. I think I have used it on some of my Instagram stories as well to make the book more famous, if I can say so. I mean, it's famous, but among feminist circles and probably women, I don't think. I mean, I think the book should be recommended in high school students, and I have never heard of this as a recommended book in school. Or I just found out. I think someone mentioned this, that when they were building their own feminist library, Natasha
Yeah,
was
yeah,
new.
yeah. I'm still building my feminist
I mean,
library. Yeah.
yeah, this is when I actually discovered this, and that's why I took some quotes then and starting sharing them, because probably even if someone is not identified as feminist or is not very into the women's rights or gender studies, they can say, "Oh, okay, this is sounds like an interesting book. Let's read it." I like also the point that she's describing Tolstoy. What if Tolstoy was a woman? And I mean, it's not just a phrase; it's just like a paragraph or more. And even if she had all the experience of that Tolstoy had and all the knowledge and everything, would she be able to write the same book about War and Peace as Tolstoy did? I mean, even if she had the same experience and the same inner knowledge, probably not. This is her conclusion, that she would be kind of trapped inside the house, inside the room, the house that is a safe space for women, that was used to be the safe space, and it's still nowadays our place to be. Okay, I don't know how you feel, because it's 15 minutes past 8. Do you want to keep going for a while? I mean, I have more questions, but it's up to you how you feel, because it can be a bit
I
intense.
thought it would last for an hour and a half.
Okay. So, well, I said 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So if you are fine, okay, let's keep going. I just don't want to feel tired, and just because we have kept a very good vibe. I think, I don't know how you feel. I think that we have a good vibe, and we are sharing interesting points, and I really enjoy it. But I want your feedback as well. Um, so. I think we already kind of answered if the argument of a woman of one's own is still valid today for women. I think we all agree that it's still a necessity for women in nowadays, right? One way or another, physically or mentally or both. Natasha, I think you have
Yeah. So I told you that I read this book a decade ago, and I was brainstorming some ideas, and I asked my friends, and one of them said, "Well, not a room of one's own. It's gonna be a mess of one's own. You need to have a space, and you can be as messy as you want. You can like be you and don't care about anything and be creative, a mess of one's own. I really liked it. Not only just a space that you can be you and whatever that implies.
Okay, Sophie, I think you want to say something as well.
Actually, I really liked what Natasha said about the mess. This notion of a mess, I think, also because women are, or I feel as a woman, let's say, I don't know if everybody shares this, but traditionally they are kind of made to be the caretakers of the mess. You can't have a mess, and you need a mess in order to create from it. But no, what I had in mind, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity to say it, as you were talking about women writers and a feminist library, even when I was not looking for a feminist library, I kept coming across women who have actually written so beautifully about everything. And I just wanted to mention, maybe for a future Pink Talk, although Woolf is amazing and I would like to talk more about her, I would like to mention a couple, as in Barbara Ehrenreich and as in Hannah Arendt, because it feels like I keep coming across women who speak beautifully and who write beautifully. Wendy Brown, I just wanted to
maybe you can
put those names.
You can write them down, and we can email them to everyone if you would like to. I would like to receive a list.
I think there's a chat here, right?
Yeah, we can do that as well. I think it's
easy. I'm on my mobile, so
don't worry then.
But
But if you come up with anything after the chat, you can still text me and we can share this info, because of course it's very interesting. And sometimes, Virginia Woolf, it's a classic book, so it's considered a classic feminist book.
It is.
So I think most of the people interested in these kind of things are aware of it. But there are more books. For example, I don't recall the author now, but I love a book that is called "We Have to Talk About Kevin." That I consider it heavily feminist book. I don't know if you know about this or the story, because it challenges the traditional women's role as mothers from the very base level. So it's kind of eye-opening for, even if you're not a feminist or you're not very into that. But it's not considered a feminist book as of yet, at least.
Is it non-fiction or is it fiction?
I think it's considered fiction, no?
It's fiction, okay.
And there is a movie as well based on that, but the book is...
I remember that.
Yeah, the film is good, but as always, the book is better. So I think we all know the classic books, especially if we are into the topic. But when it comes to more contemporary or to different styles of book, not traditionally academical books or traditional feminist books, maybe we need more suggestions. So feel free to write us, and we can share a list. We can also add our own, and we can make a huge list for future Pink Talks as well, as you said. Natasha, you want to add something? Yes.
No, I want to ask, so is this going to be a book club? Do we get another book, and do we get
if you want to participate in the as a volunteer, as Valentina, you can get in touch with us and suggest.
Because I think it would be interesting for some of us to suggest some feminist books.
You can. We have a list, an internal list of books that everybody just puts the names. So
we have two at least that they're being planned.
Which ones?
Katarina knows more. I think one we sold All Be Feminist.
It's going to. We are going to tape it on the 4th of January, and then release it afterwards. But if you want to participate, just get in touch with us, and we will arrange you can also go to the YouTube page to see what kind of talks that we had. We had like very interesting talks like with men also about the role of men in feminism, about homosexuality in Poland. So it's yeah, we are starting now after the holidays picking up the agenda. Yeah, but yes, this is going to be like a book club recurrence. We want to have a few of them, or at least once a month, or a few of them a month. We also going to have like a cine club doing the same thing that we are doing with books, but with movies. Uh, so yeah, you can, all of you can participate. Yeah, and in art also, if yeah, we are going to discuss art also. We are going to have these kinds of um, topics around this stuff. But about what Natasha said, um, there's a writer, an American writer, Maya Angelou. I don't know if you
Yes.
know Maya Angelou. Yeah. So one of the things that she used to do is like have a room in a hotel so she could work, so she could get out of the house, she would work, she would have like her own space for this. So I think it's really interesting, this necessity that we have of having a physical space, of not being interrupted. It's really nice. And about what you said, women being written, men being written by women. You had that with Mr. Darcy. I had that with Persuasion.
I
So
love Persuasion.
yes, I think it was like uh, a very well built character. It's one of her least known books, but it's a really good book. And there's Valentina mentioned erotica. We have like in Portugal nowadays a poet, a female poet, Maria Teresa Horta. She's like 85 now. She actually got in trouble during the Salazar dictatorship about some erotic poems that she wrote. And then she was like assaulted on the street. And then she and other two of her friends, Maria Isabel Barreto and Maria Velho da Costa, they worked on a book. It was like some letters of a nun, and they were put on trial for that, and that's in the feminist movement around the world like got together to see if they could fight against this. So my first approach around erotic poetry was with her, and she writes beautifully. She can write like about sex, but also about love in a way that no man can. At least I haven't read any man writing poetry or prose this way about sex and love at the same level. It's she's just like wonderful. And I think that one of my questions, this is why I did this introduction, is one of the questions that we had is, do women write differently than men?
Yes. Talking about
Yes.
erotica, I have to leave, so this will be my last comment. Obviously, we need to mention Anais Nin and her book Delta of Venus. Yes, yes. I don't know if you have read this, but I think there's something. I think it's quite different when a woman writes about sex, it becomes a little bit more powerful just because she is not allowed to be sexually promiscuous openly. And yep, Anna Isnin, yes. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has read the book I'm talking about. Oh my God, you're lucky. All right, I
Put
have,
on the list.
yes, I will. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting you all. I have to go. Thank you. I hope to see you again.
Great to meet you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So who else wants to comment on that? If women and men write differently, and probably why?
I want the name. Sorry, let's not forget to have the name of that poet.
Okay, so yeah, I will send you. Yeah. In some of her works, yeah, she has the three women that were put on trial. They actually were translated in English and also French. Yeah, so I'll send you the reference. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we need it. Very interesting story, by the way. I hadn't read about this at all. Mariana, I think you want
Yes.
to answer this question.
I also made some note about this because this question really catch me, because I think most of the things, how we think, how we act, we are educated, and of course we can be educated in a household where there is someone that tries to educate you as in a feminist way as much possible. But society in general, if you go out, if you have to interact with people, you're definitely going to face some other situations that it's not going to be the same. And maybe sometimes even at home, which is very common, because I think feminism is also something that is growing slowly in everyone's mind. And I think that not only writing, but writing, of course, we definitely do it different because we have lived in different situations. We are made in different situations. We are put in different situations in life. So I definitely think that women in general, we write in different ways, like about erotica or about experiences, about feelings. I think most of the times we live different experiences. So
you think that if we were living in a truly equal world, that would be a discrepancy or not anymore? Because I mean, I know it's a bit provocative question,
no, sure.
and probably nobody knows the answer because it's a completely theoretical model of having an
It's very
equal
utopic, I would say.
It sounds like a utopia, yeah. But I always do these kind of questions when these kind of topics come out. Women do differently this than men, and our brain are wired differently, and things like that. But is it really the case, or is it because we are social?
Yeah, I think it's the social experience that we have been through. Like, it's not because biology. I think it's more the social everything. It's about how you are treated, like how parents educate you and how they educate your brother or your cousin, and all these differences, I think. But I unfortunately, I can't imagine a world right now where we have this kind of equality. So I hope one day, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, let's hope.
Even if, sorry, I want to say this. I don't know if it's right, of course, but I am speculating. Even if we did live in an equal world, even if politically and socially we were the same. I know of a Greek feminist who keeps telling audiences or whoever is going to listen that we are the same, that there's no difference between women and men. And I think that's a good way of looking at it, because we don't say that there's a difference between black men and white men, for instance, talking about intersectionality. Anyway, but even if everything socially was equal, we do have different bodies, and we live sex differently, for instance. So there are the differences that need to be talked about, and we can talk about sex, for instance, as this this author that Katerina was talking about. We could talk about sex differently. We could talk about different experiences based on a different body, a different anatomy. So, just a thought.
I mean, I think it's a controversial argument because, for example, there are women with penises or there are men with vaginas. So,
of course, that's true. But that's social then.
Exactly. Then it goes really into biology. But this is really important when we are taught since young age that when you have sex, actually, men have sex, women are being fucked up. Like, even the way we talk about women when they have sex, they're passive.
That is social.
Sometimes objects, sometimes just passive human beings, sometimes not even human beings.
That is social. That
exactly.
is social, and
shapes the entire perspective of sex and of how we. And sometimes we feel like that if we have sex with many men, ooh, that's bad because. Or there are phrases like a key can open many locks, but a lock that opens with many keys is useless. Such sexist phrases that have been going around in different languages for years. So without all this, maybe even the anatomy was not important because some men enjoy passive, how can you say, passive sex.
Yeah,
hetero.
I think you're very right, but also you are mixing the anatomy with the social view of the anatomy. I was looking for a book that was in 1999, I think. At a conference, it was said, and it was supported, that the biological way we think of women, the reproduction part of a woman, is not how we have learned it at school. It's not as though the woman's egg is sitting down and waiting for the wonderful sperm to reach it.
Exactly.
But what happens is that the egg grabs the sperm, and that was when that was realized, which I know that the Greek books have not been updated, and we're talking about the 90s now, 30 years ago, or 20. I can't remember whether it's 1990 or 1999. Anyway, I can't find the book. It's a cultural studies volume. So what happened when this was realized through experiments and through the very serious science of medicine, when it was realized that it is the egg that does the job, the way it was described was a social way, and it was described as though the egg was capturing in a spider manner, the sperm. So it was given as this evil egg who is, whereas before it was the sperm that is heroic and does all the job. Then the description was this evil egg that's going to grab poor sperm. So again, I think it makes sense as feminists. It's very, very difficult, and I keep catching myself at doing it wrongly. But as feminists, there is the option of looking at anatomy and everything in a non-socially patriarchal way. So it's not, the egg does all the work, it's the heroic egg that maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Or, even the clitoris is the best, I think, example of this. It's the only organ in the human body that exists simply for sexual pleasure, and the anatomy and the depiction of the anatomy have been studied like 10, 20 years only, even if the technology have been able to depict the anatomy for years. And if this organ was on the male's on the man's body, it would have been portrayed in every sculpture since ancient years. It have been painted, it have been like, but who knows the clitoris anatomy nowadays unless you really looked for that. I mean, penis, it has been celebrated and it's good. I mean, it's good. It's not nothing to be ashamed of, but it has been celebrating for thousands of years when we don't even know how a clitoris looks like, which is actually even better than penis because it exists just for pleasure. It's just for pleasure and it's an amazing organ, but it's completely neglected. So again, this is a social way into looking at things that it has to do with anatomy, but it has been affected so negatively by patriarchal standards that we almost forget them as women as well.
I don't know, maybe the Indians actually, together with the penis, they have depictions of vaginas.
Vaginas, yes.
Which yeah, we always have our hopes on ancient cultures such as the Indian. I don't know.
Okay, I think I don't know, did we interrupt anyone? I think Leah, you had something to say before and we interrupt you, or no? Or you wanted to say something anyway? Because I think
I don't think so. I really hate this question of like comparing men and women. I just, because it's so, there's so many different opinions that you can have about it, because as much as I hate it, we are different in this sense. I do think it is very social though and learned. And that's why we do have different experiences or maybe different perspectives, but I don't know, it's just so difficult. It's very hard to answer, I think. And I think it's really, really hard too to think about what life would be like without these, gender roles or, stereotypes. It's just too hard to think about, like this utopia. I would love it. It would be great, but it's just like, it's so, I don't know, it feels fictitious to me. But yeah, so
sounds almost unnatural, right?
Yeah, because as much as I hate it too, it's so ingrained in me as a woman to be, interrupted, like you said before, like not have these spaces, and I'm just used to it. I worry about stuff. But I then sometimes take it as like my personality is who I am. But it goes back to maybe being, well, I was treated this way because I was a girl. I was taught to, worry about people and nurture and care. And compared to, I have a brother, and compared to him, he doesn't care about anything. And, so it's very interesting. But then I a lot of times too come back to the question of then people, non-gender or non-binary, and how does that work then, with them? And I'm sure we all have these roles that we're trying to fit into that obstruct us from, being free. But just to compare men and women in that sense, it's so difficult to say if we would be, equal, how would it be? So, yeah.
Thank you. Mariana, you want to say something? No?
No,
I saw you almost trying to comment, but
Yes.
I just want to add something, because Katarina said before that an author in, I don't remember the name, but he mentioned that she's renting a room in a hotel.
Yeah, Maya Angelou. Yeah, she used to rent a room in an hotel. Yeah, she would go there to work, and then
I think that's why
she would have like some books and some music, and then she would
personal space. But I think that's why the book that we are talking about today is so relevant, because actually pandemic brought this need very, very to every stage of life, I mean, women's career during the pandemic when they had kids had some took some downsides. When men's career, even if they had kids, they went up. I don't know if there have been some studies, of course, on a small scale because it's super new still, this kind of situation. So this is actually super relevant because women had also to take care of their kids in the terms of schooling, homeschooling, of trying to make them quiet during the dad's important meetings. And this was not as equal as we were thinking that it would be in such a situation. So I think this pandemic also revealed this problem that as soon as everybody had to stay stuck at home, whose career is more important? Obviously, the dad's. Even if there's less money or has less potential, it doesn't matter. I don't even go into that. But instantly, the one who had to sacrifice their own time, their time from the career, was women. So I think that's why this book is so relevant nowadays. Again, it's like we're going backwards at this specific thing instead of forward. I don't know if you have anything else to say. If you are...
I would like to say something about this. In Brazil, they had research where they showed that women in academia and men compared to, they are producing less than men because they don't have the time that men have. So just it's all around the world, and yeah.
I think I saw a similar one from Switzerland or France, that probably it was less expected than Brazil or than Greece.
For sure.
In Greece, you wouldn't be surprised with such findings, but I think it was France or Switzerland. I'm not sure, but a more progressive country than Greece for sure. And it was like they got more PhD. They got their PhDs faster. While for the women was opposite. So someone is buying their own time from women's lives. So it's a discrepancy here again.
And it's interesting to think because we see these governments that they are, as you said, progressive, and they also have so many laws in favor to women, but it's different when you're inside your house, and then it's not the same.
Yep. Yeah. Anyone else wants to add something as a conclusion or something? We're all set? Okay, perfect. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did the same too. I hope you had a good time and you will join us again for another book club conversation. Feel free to keep in touch. And we're gonna share the YouTube channel and the Instagram account, so you can, even if you don't want to participate again, you can just be in touch and read or listen to other things we do. Thanks a lot for your time, and we are
Thank you.
past the time. And have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for next week, where we'll discuss sex education and disabilities. Thank you for listening to Pink Talks. Before we go, show some love for our favorite podcast by leaving us a comment and subscribe to the channel. We are Young Educators, a non-profit organization working on human rights, gender equality, and active citizenship. And this podcast was created with the support of our team: Ana Catarina Caldeira,
Laura Staffia,
Mariana Brasileiro, Leia Chini,